Welcome back to Business Banking and Beyond. In this episode, we are joined with Immanuel Williams, an accomplished coach, trainer, and entrepreneur with over 2 decades of experience shaping individuals and organizations. Immanuel, who's founder of Thriving Coaching Academy with a presence in India, Bahrain, and the UAE. He's a certified NLP practitioner and has coached over 12,000 people specializing in mindset, leadership, and communication skill. We'll be talking about Immanuel's journey from India to UAE, the power of Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and the expertise in public speaking, body language, listening skills, and leadership. He also shares his perspective on bridging generational gaps with Gen Z, overcoming micromanagement, and the future of leadership. Immanuel highlights the 3 pillars of life coaching: mindset, communication, and leadership, and provides practical tips for scaling your career. This conversation is full of inspiration and actionable insights from one of the most seasoned coaches in the region. So let's get started with Immanuel Williams. First of all, thank you so much, Immanuel, taking out time and coming on Business Banking and Beyond.
Thank you so much, Hemant, for having me here. It's a pleasure. I've been looking forward to coming and talking to you for the last few weeks.
So important things first. First of all, I want to know your journey as a life coach. How did it all started from India to UAE to Bahrain and then to UAE now?
Okay, so being a coach was not a part of a plan. It was something that I wanted to do in the space of helping people. But the whole intent started with about wanting to help people and be of service. Started my journey in the hospitality back in India because I was passionate. One thing I did have was a lot of clarity in my life where I wanted to see myself and kept manifesting it. So I was very young when I made the decision to get into hospitality. And I did work in the hospitality all my life before I became a coach, but in the capacity of learning and development and training and coaching people. So that's how I started in India. Then I moved to the UAE. In Abu Dhabi, I worked with a few organizations here, Spinneys and so on. And I finished with Al Shaya in the UAE and moved with another organization in Bahrain just before I became a coach. And coaching has been for the last 3 years. And it stems from the fact that I have been in a people helping initiative such as learning and development, human resources. These are my strengths. So I utilize that into getting into online coaching and still with.
So during your whole journey, you were in coaching business only.
That is correct.
And that's what made you to start your life coach business here in the UAE. So when did it all started? It started in UAE, started in India or in Bahrain?
So I started making content in 2019 on social media, but I didn't have an established business back then. Then during COVID, I took the opportunity to register my company in India, in Bangalore, but I couldn't do that officially in the Gulf because I was still employed here. In 2022, we started officially as a company. And so we've been here for 3 years. But so that's the journey.
So Immanuel, as we know, today's podcast is about life coaching, how people can get more knowledge about the business. So if you had to explain your business in 60 seconds, what that will be?
So we work in 3 areas predominantly. That was mindset building, communication skills enhancement, and leadership development. But it's something that I build on life coaching principles. What does that mean? It means that we work with you in transformation. The premium product or the service that we offer is called Transformation 360, which is what we do. We transform people's lives and then help you scale up your career. So that's in brief.
So when you speak about Transformation 360, it's about 3 major things, which are the 3 pillars, which is leadership, communication, and mindset. We will go in detail about this because that is what matters. So let's first speak about mindset.
Look, we usually start by defining the word mindset because there's a lot of people who know what this word is, but they don't really know what it actually means. And mindset is a frame by which you operate. And how it works has been influenced by various other factors. I strongly believe this. And, Carol Dweck in her book talks about fixed minds and growth mindsets and what is the difference largely. And there's a variation between the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. But largely, what is a growth mindset? That is what we focus on. How do you build a growth mindset? Okay. And that means a growth mindset always looks at challenges as opportunities. And it also talks about more emotional resilience, talks about not complaining about your problems, but looking for solutions, and always wanting to grow, not being in your comfort zone, and trying to help other people grow around you, right? So you empower yourself and you empower other people. You don't really complain. You look at every challenge as a stepping stone to your life and a learning. We believe there's no failure, there's only learning. So this is what a growth mindset is. Now, unless you have the mindset factor correct, you will not be able to scale your career because you're growing in designation, but your mindset is not changing, which is what brings you down in terms of your overall confidence sometimes, or overall presentation as a person. How do you present yourself? How do you build your own brand, right? That stands out. So we work in scraping your mindset negativity and building that and helping you with that, and then working through your communication, because communication is the premise of leadership. How do you define somebody as a leader?
So, Immanuel, what I could understand, mindset is a very important pillar. And in this, we discuss about two major things, which is fixed mindset and growth mindset. Be it an employee, be it a leader, a manager, the most important thing is the right mindset, which is a growth mindset. And in your transformation 360, in your life coaching, you want to convert fixed mindset into a growth mindset. And when we speak about growth mindset, you use different strategies to make it a growth mindset in a longer term.
So we use a lot of psychology. And when I say that, I talk about neuro-linguistic programming as a science, which I use in my coaching programs or other strategy. So what I do is I take a lot of tools because I'm a certified NLP practitioner. NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. Now, neuro stands for your brain. Linguistic is the language, and programming is how your brain has been programmed. So this science started off in the 1990s and became very prominent. A lot of people don't talk about it very openly, but we know the premise on which they coach other people is actually these tools. So there's a lot about that. There's a huge science that goes behind that. But what I use is to transform people and challenge their core belief systems, because we give them a lot of time to reflect. So one is telling you what the mindset is, how what factors have been there, challenging you over a period of time, asking you to think differently, come out of your comfort zone. Because a comfort zone is something where most people thrive. Then they keep themselves with that. They don't want to challenge themselves because the human mind wants stability. So we all do that. So what I do is I tell them that if you want long-term stability, that means there's no much of growth, because you want to be in the same place. That's what you're looking for. So then you have to look at growth as an opportunity to grow. So we give them time to reflect. Now, coaching, unlike training, is very different. We give you time to reflect. We ask you to work through a lot of tools that we'll be giving you. We ask you to work through a lot of checklists. We monitor you. We tell you, we give you feedback. We have a checklist that we have to determine what your mindset is. And then we tell you what changes you have to make and how you can make it. So I use life coaching principles. For example, we do journaling. We do something called a rewiring and a reframing technique of how you can remove yourself from negativity in your head.
So the first major thing under fixed mindset is NLP, which is a very well-known scientific technique which you are using to convert a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. So what are the special three things under NLP which you use to convert the mindset?
See, the thing with NLP is that it's a slightly broader science. There are a lot of people who've added a lot of techniques to it and they call it NLP, but I don't dwell into the very hardcore principles. I have developed some things by myself, and I take NLP tools as well. So NLP has certain very technical tools, which is very difficult to explain because they're all longer explanation of each. Now, I do something called self-talk. That is negativity. Now, any coach will tell you this. This is not necessarily a neuro-linguistic programming thing, but it is highly connected with NLP. So how do you speak to yourself? That's the first thing we try to change in your head, because a lot of us don't know what thought processes are inside our head. We keep talking about being positive, but are you really positive inside your head? But that becomes the challenge. So what I do is work around with the negativity first. Then a lot of reflections. So we do things like journaling, checklists, we monitor you, we ask you, because my team works, not just me, I have a team that works in helping my mentees and my coachees on how you can work on yourself. So there's a lot of reflections. So that's one thing that I do. And there's a lot of monitoring. So where we help you to monitor your behavior completely. So I think these would be the three things.
So we have self-talk, reflection. What is the third thing?
Monitoring your
Monitoring. So basically you're
analyzing and you're giving feedback.
So this is NLP, which you use to convert a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. What are the other things which you are doing?
Challenge yourself constantly, right? So the first thing we tell you is to change. Are you ready to change? And my coaching program starts with that aspect. We have like major segments. So the first segment focuses on mindset and change. The second segment focuses on communication. And the third segment focuses on leadership. So that's how we've structured the three pillars. So the first 3 to 4 weeks is all about, are you ready to change? So they're given constant exercises on a daily monitoring level. We monitor you on a daily basis to help you reflect overall. So we give you like 15, 20-minute exercises. That is one thing. Then we also help you with building your self-confidence in areas of communication, public speaking. We ask you to monitor yourself and we ask you to record yourself. So we do exercises of recording yourself. We ask you to, we give you checklists. We give you behavioral notes where you have to keep making notes and sharing the feedback with us. It's almost like working with a psychologist or a therapist for constant monitoring. And that's the reason our mentees see a lot of ROI.
So this was all about the mindset. And the most important thing is to change a fixed mindset to growth mindset using various techniques which we discussed. What about the second pillar of communication? How do you work on that?
So like I already told you, right, Hemant, the three things are very interlocked, right? It's like a puzzle. One does not evolve. But the basis of both communication and leadership is your mindset, right? If you don't get that right. So moving on to communication, people often narrow the view of communication or the ability to communicate very well to the ability to speak fluently or fluently in a specific language. So that is a very myopic and a narrow view of communication skills. And that's what I tell people, that look beyond. So the challenge here is that how do we know what are the communication skills? Almost 90% of managers write in their appraisal forms, you need to improve your communication skills. But even the manager does not know what are communication skills. Is it just about speaking? Now let's talk about an introvert. An introvert's problem is not communication skills. An introvert's challenge is the personality in itself. So if I'm not able to tweak my behavior, I might speak fantastically in English, but if I don't have the desire to speak, because introverts don't want to speak openly, that's their personality trait. So we think it's a problem. The problem is not with that. They don't have a problem. Now, if I tell you a personality trait as a problem, you can say extroverts have a problem. So nobody says extrovert is a problem, right? So extroverts don't have communication problems. The same way introverts that's not the problem. The thing is with their mindset, how they think. They don't find the necessity to speak if there's no need to speak. That's how they feel. So you got to change that thinking. It's not easy to do that. So we give you exercises, how you can do it. We push you for networking, etc. So building your own brand, all of that stuff. So communication is about speaking, is about listening, is about body language, is about the tone of your voice, is about presentation skills, is about persuasion, influencing, right? As that will bring us to the next topic, which is leadership. Anybody in that capacity will need to influence, and you cannot influence people if you cannot communicate well. And that encompasses all the other skills that I just told you, other than just speaking.
So we'll discuss all the points one by one in detail. But before that, I want to know how an introvert can convert into himself into the right personality. I won't say extrovert, but into the right personality step by step.
Right. So there's a word called ambivert, which is right in between. So introverted people do not become extroverts. Now, in psychology, we say changing your personality is like changing the core of who you are. It's very, very difficult. It takes years and it's almost impossible to change the core of who you are. What you can change is your behavioral trait that are linked with your personality. And that's the mindset space that we work, right? So an introvert becoming an extrovert. No, an introvert moves to an ambivert space. That means I adjust according to the situation around me, right? So if I am in a gathering, can I speak with people rather than being quietly on my phone, right? If I go to a job interview, can I speak up in that place? I don't have to speak all the time, but can I speak when it is required? That is an ambivert. How do we do that? We monitor you. We ask you to challenge your belief systems in the first place, right? So we tell you why it's important to speak, and then you practice, and then you come and give me feedback, and then that eventually becomes a behavior. We train behaviors by challenging your mindset. We can't change the core of who you are, but I'm going to keep telling you and reminding you as a coach. See, coaches, mentors, therapists, they're not going to tell you anything new. They're only going to remind you. They're like mirrors. We are like mirrors. People come to us because they know something, but they want to be sure if what they're thinking is right, or is there another perspective. So we tell you that you can move to an ambivert, because telling an introvert that you can become an extrovert is like asking me to shut up because I'm an extrovert, and you're telling me to shut up, don't speak. So I can't do that. That's changing who I am. So it's the same difficulty what an introvert faces. You can't tell them to be an extrovert. You can tell them why it's important and how you can make it up. And look at the top successful people in the world. They're all introverts, right? So if you look at an Elon Musk, or if you look at a Bill Gates, everybody, all of them are introverts, most of them. Now, to that point, they all had a backup when they all started, but introverts generally find it very difficult to excel in the corporate. So, which is why we highlight how you can do that, because talking to people is building a band. Speaking to people, like, I don't think you would be where you are if you were not a person who would speak to people, right? So that is an
Well, it is required to.
It is required.
Well, I have learned a lot of things from this conversation, Immanuel, that I also believe that somewhere I'm introvert in that sense, because when I go to social gatherings, when I go to meetings, when I go to networking events, I speak when it is required to speak. And I speak when I am feeling connected with that topic, or when I'm connecting with that particular person. I don't just speak randomly out of it. And most of the times, if I don't understand that topic, or if I don't know about that topic, I would first like to learn as a good listener, then only speak on that. But because of that, I get tagged introvert a lot of times.
I assessed you the first 5 minutes of sitting and talking to you that you're an introvert, that you lean towards introvertedness. But the challenge with that is, today we're in a digital communication, right? When I message you on WhatsApp, you might want to respond, but you might not want to talk a lot. But then what impression do I get as a stranger? Is Hemant ignoring me? Or is he arrogant? But you're none of that. It's just who you are, right? Your intention is not to ignore me or to be arrogant, but that's how an extrovert perceives you, right? So that's the problem with me. Now, I know these things, so I'm not going to judge you. But there are a lot of people who will say that, okay, this guy doesn't talk. He's not a very social guy. He's arrogant. That's how the world sees you.
So help me out on this. The camera is off. The audio is off. I really want to know about this. How can I improve?
Oh, for that, I mean, that's going to be free advice then. So what we do is, so basically these are things that you have to work with someone. Like, change of your personality or change of your overall behavior is somebody who needs to guide you. Like, you've risen to the occasion. Like, I can see you talking, but I also know a part of you struggling inside to do that, right? That's on your face because I assess people. So I know that very well.
Well, that gives me a lot of confidence that I can be coached by you, Immanuel. Now let's move on to the communication angle, especially the public speaking. So what are your stats? What is the data which you have when it comes to the issues with the founders in terms of public speaking?
So see, statistics about public speaking is something that the whole world knows. A lot of people know. Glossophobia. What is glossophobia? The fear of public speaking, right? Not everybody can stand in front of people and speak. Why? There's a fear, there's an anxiety. Where is it stemming from? That fear is called glossophobia. And about 83 to 85% on the planet, the population of the human species, has a problem of public speaking. To an extent where public speaking is the biggest fear. It's even bigger than the fear of death and failure in life.
I've heard more.
Right? So this is research. This is not me making it up. So it's very common. So which is why you will see a lot of people want to work on that, because they want to rise in their careers. But when they stand in front of people, they don't know what to say. Like, if someone pulls you or somebody and says in a birthday party, please give a speech. You're put on a spot. you over there and you don't know what to say. Where do I start? Where do I go? What do I say? I have seen CEOs making a fool of themselves in front of 100,000 people, right? So it's just that you need someone to help you with that in terms of how. So there's a structure in communication. Again, now public speaking is not, it's not going to start at making you stand in front of people and speak, because it goes back to the mindset, right? If you inherently have a lack of confidence because of something, right? Or you're an introvert because that's your mindset. Again, public speaking alone is not going to help you, because I have to work with you from your mindset aspect to tackle a long term. I can teach you how to speak in front of people. You will do a fantastic job, but you'll go back to your office and you'll do the same thing again, because this has not changed. So how is that public speaking going to help you if you've not changed your mindset? Which is why you see a lot of trainers, or even to that end, a lot of people years in Toastmasters, where I'm a Toastmaster, have not been able to do a lot of public speaking because they're trained at one point, but their mindset still goes back into. So practice what you are doing. Consistency in practice of communication is what you require in public speaking. So yeah, so statistics is about that, and public speaking is about overcoming two important fears. One is the fear of judgment, right? So what will people say if I make a fool of myself? If I make a fool of myself, everybody, especially if you're a little senior in your job, right? You don't want to be looked upon as somebody who does not know how to talk in front of people. So there's a huge fear of judgment. And culturally in Asia, or specifically in India, we have this very, very problem, right? Like in Hindi, you say, log kya kahenge? So this is what we grow up with all the time. That is the fear of judgment. Then there's one general fear of uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen. What will happen to me when I go in front of people? Judgment is one fear, but about me, I don't know that. And then there are other issues related to it. Why do you get stuck? Why do you get stuck for words? Now, there are two reasons why you get stuck for words. One is language, the ability to communicate or speak in a specific language. The other one is clarity in the head, right? People are not very clear in their head. So there are a lot of psychological reasons why that happens. So when you stand in front of people, you talk, but you don't make sense. And people are like, oh my God, why are you talking like this? Or why are you making a fool of yourself? That's the kind of judgment you get, which is why most people don't do. But the people who are not really scared of being judged are the ones that put themselves out there many times.
So I would take a different stance on that, and I would like to get your advice on it. When we speak to people with fixed mindset, they have their own comfort zone. And when we try to break them out, they will definitely say, why should I even do public speaking? I don't need that. So how do you go about it? How do you meet these people, motivate them that this is required, and move them out from their comfort zone?
But Hemant, change is not only about public speaking, right? When I tell you to change, you have to transform yourself overall. So any change if I would, not you, I mean anybody, would say, why should I change, right? Then they know they have to change sometimes. But here we have to understand a little bit of psychology. So there's a part of your brain that defends you, which is called as the amygdala. And this is the part of the brain that gives you fear and anxiety. It's the part of the brain that says the fight or flight mode, where you either stay in a particular situation and fight it, or you exit. So the fight or flight is that defensive part of you. So every time we defend ourselves in a conversation or a fight, or physically, emotionally, this is that part of the brain working inside you, which is stopping you from accepting feedback and working. So only when you are aware that you are the one who's defending yourself, you can't take that critical feedback. Now, I was in that space. I was very much in that space a few years ago. I still can be defensive. I have to consistently work on that, because that's a part of the way my brain works, defensiveness. So unless you want to change and take feedback from others, you will not be able to do that. Like, for example, now you said, Immanuel, I'd like to take feedback from you. How many people will be willing to say that? How many people will be willing to sit in front of someone you just met and say, I want to know what your views are? I'd say 2%, so it's very few people. So which already says you have a growth mindset, because you're able to take feedback and work on it. You wouldn't see my statements as criticisms. So that's a very important trait. This also can come from the personality. Like, my personality was getting defensive all the time. So people have advised me that, you're getting defensive right now. So it is a still work in progress. I still don't think I'm there.
So what I meant here by public speaking myth, I think we are on the similar lines about it, that when a fixed mindset is trying to change anything, in this case it's public speaking, he will have some of the other friction or restrictions due to that comfort zone. So is it that you have to break every single myth, every single restriction from moving to a growth to, sorry, from fixed to growth mindset?
It depends on what goals you want to achieve, right? Like suppose you want to achieve career goals. So then we have to understand what are the aspects of your mindset that's stopping you from your career. You want to achieve fitness goals. What are the aspects? Like I deal with procrastination with people. People find it difficult to get up and go to the gym in the morning. That's a part of that. So I deal as a part of life coaching. We also do fitness and nutrition because I'm very passionate about it. So we give them I don't give you the diet plan and all that, but I do tell you what is healthy, what is unhealthy. So I work on that area as well. So when you look at what your goals are, we work on those.
Well, I got my answer. It was to the point. Thank you so much for putting it right onto the face. Now, what I understood from it, that there'll be multiple myths which will be broken during this journey of transformation. But the first thing is, which you make understand to your people whom you're coaching, is that this is about growing. So every time on the journey, multiple myths will be broken. So first thing which you are doing is changing the mindset that yes, you will have to change yourself along the journey. So once you change that mindset, automatically he's ready that along the journey he will be going through this multiple times. Now, on my podcast, a lot of times, most of the women entrepreneurs who have come on business banking and beyond have discussed on the same point, which is about fear of judgment. And this comes from the heart because I have seen of them speaking about the same thing, that when women try to do something, they have a fear of judgment. So do you agree by that? And do you see that, yes, it is more common in women compared that to the men?
How much time do we have, Hemant? Because that's a very, very long answer to that question. So, see, I don't want to sound like a sexist, but I'm going to give you data, right? I'm going to give you data because I'm in that area where I'm coaching people. And I'll tell you, we have 10% women and 90% men who come to us and make decisions. Why is that a problem? Why are women not coming in the forefront? It's not men who are stopping them necessarily. It's women who stop themselves from coming in the front. They have a mindset. Now, who created that mindset? They have always been told to depend on someone else for a decision, right? So they start doubting themselves to a large extent. Before even they make a decision, they've been told, like if you're mostly in an Asian or a Middle Eastern household, go to your father. A girl child is always told in the house to go to your father or your older brother or somebody else to make a decision for you. Whereas men are not brought up that way to a large extent. So when you do not give them independence right from the start, what happens is you're not shaping their critical thinking. They're not able to become decisive a lot of times because they keep believing somebody else will make their decisions. Which is why women always come to today. I know women who come and tell me, I am working, but I can't take a decision without my husband's permission to be on this program. I know women whose ATM cards are held by their husbands, right? Why do we have this problem? Because they constantly doubt themselves. So the fear of judgment is not coming only from the outside. There is a huge mind block that women have, and some women are able to get out of it, but a lot of them are still there and they're okay. The problem is they're okay with it. Challenging them is the biggest challenge. So I tell them that even sometimes they come and say, oh, I'm not the decision maker, but you are earning. Why are you not a decision maker? No, my husband makes the decisions. He doesn't trust that I can make better financial decisions. So where is the judgment actually coming from? It's coming from within, right? The fear of judgment is within because somebody said you're not a good decision maker.
Well, this is one more free advice which I took from you. Dangad is a woman-led organization, starting from the CEO Jyoti, from our head of marketing to our director in India to our head of business setup. It's a woman-led organization. And sometimes I fear for my job as well that I could be replaced soon as well, the way Dangad works so good with the women. And the fear of judgment which women have. So this I wanted to go out that yes, there is a fear of judgment in the woman, and this is spoken by all the women who came on our podcast, which it should not be there, because as Dangard, we are a women-led organizations and we want more women leaders.
There's going to be a lot of counter view to this because there's longer explanations to this, right? People will say that's not the reason, etc. But look at women sidelining themselves a lot, right? And even many times women do that in the boardroom. They feel isolated because they're less in terms of. So women still have a long way to be equal with men in a lot of places. And that's not a joke. And there are a lot of statistics to actually prove that. But now that is why sometimes I say leadership has also to be taught, because women tend to doubt themselves even when they're leaders, and they feel that their decisions go wrong. And sometimes what happens now, you have to understand that the women in general are more emotional thinkers compared to men, because women use mostly the right side of the brain, which is the emotional side of the brain. Men use mostly the left side of the brain in general, no generalization. About 70% are usually, this is a gender pattern, usage and thinking. So what happens is a lot of decisions could be emotional sometimes, but then they have to step out of that and try to prove themselves every time. So I help women do that to a large extent, that this is where you need to focus on and how to become more rational, because sometimes, most times, business decisions have to be rational, not emotional. So yeah.
Now we'll move on to the most important aspect, which I believe and is often ignored: body language. So what's your point on that?
Have you ever, let me ask you this question. So have you ever gone through any books or anything which tells you what parts of communication are more important, and do you have any idea about it?
In terms of body language, you mean?
In terms of overall communication, what are the aspects that are very important? Is it speaking? Is it body language? Is it voice? Is it words? What is the most important thing according to you?
Well, I read a lot of books. More than that, I watch a lot of videos of all founders, entrepreneurs, but personally, I have not read any specific communication based book through which I could learn and implement. I am still having my own communication way, might be wrong, might be correct, but yeah, I'm not following currently any specific book for communication per se.
Okay. All right. So by research, body language happens to be the most important aspect of communication. People think it's not body language, it's how you speak and what words you say and all that stuff. But so we have proper research that tells you that about 55 to 60% of the human communication is body language, right? And it's about 20% to 25% is your voice, and about 15% is your content. So when someone comes and tells me that I don't know how to speak in English very well and I'm a poor communicator, that's only 15%. So what are we talking about, right? So you need to understand where it starts from, right? Now, when you enter your office door, people are looking at you. They're not listening to your voice. They don't hear what you're saying, but they're looking at you. And that's when they know who you are. So your body language communicates even before you start speaking, right? Like, for example, the human perception is completely first driven by body language, right? Like if I were to tell you, I'll give you a famous personality, and I probably want to tell you, tell me, what is the first thought that comes to your mind? Okay, so like, what's the picture of that person that you see when that thought comes to your mind? So let's talk about Elon Musk, right? What's the kind of picture you have about Elon Musk? The first thing when I say his name, what's the first image you get in your head?
Big guy, innovative guy, Iron Man.
Yeah, but it's the guy. But the picture in your mind, what's the picture you see in your mind? Like the face of Elon Musk, what is he wearing?
I picture him as somebody who's on to something big all the time and speaking from deep mind.
Right. But when I said Elon Musk, did you think about his voice or what words he says or how his English language is?
No.
Right? You actually thought about how he looked physically.
Yeah, of course.
So you see, body language is the first perception of communication, which is why it rises on the top more than your voice, and then followed by content. So yes, so body language is about 60% of who you are, which is why what you wear, how you smile, how you walk, how you sit, every single thing about you that gives a message to the other. I mean, there are sciences and books written about body language because it's so important in leadership. Today, it's about authenticity, right? But yet, what kind of body language is acceptable? Walking straight. Because see, we all judge. I may not tell you my opinions, but we all judge. I mean, from the time I came in, you may not have told me anything. It's not even your intention, but your brain is telling you what kind of a guy this guy is by just looking at the way he is walking, what he's wearing, with the way he smiles, the way he shakes hands. It's automatic. Judgment, perception is automatic. It's not even your intention, right? So what I'm saying is be more authentic, right? And the way you dress to the occasion, right? People don't know what sometimes to wear what and how to match their outfits. That really matters a lot. People don't know how much smile is an important factor. When you speak to people, it's one of the most influencing parts of body language is smiling at people because it's really positive and contagious. So these are all psychological techniques which we teach you even through NLP, how smile can actually influence a sales deal. That's how important body language is. So when you look at a leader, the specific thing is be more authentic, but be more graceful, be more watchful, because there are people judging you every minute of the day. From the way you're sitting with your secretary to the way you're sitting in the cafeteria, you're being judged, whether you like it or not. So you need someone to guide you through that, and that's a whole science.
Oh my God. Well, you spoke about being authentic. When it comes to a lot of leaders, especially coming from India, sometimes they are not able to figure out, maybe I'm not sure, that what is being authentic and what is being grounded to your roots. What I mean is that often in their way of communication and dress up, body language, you will see the touch from where they belong. So, I mean, is this the correct way? Is this what you mean by being authentic?
See, the challenge with going to your roots is that you think you have to take a lot of pride in your roots. There's nothing, in my opinion, I don't feel proud about anything from where I come or what my past was, where I was born, my language, my religion, my ethnicity, my culture, because I didn't work hard for any of these things. They were all given to me. I only grew up, I only bloomed where I was planted. So I don't need to take pride in something. This is my view. And a lot of people do think like that. I don't take pride in these things. So I don't define myself by my roots. I speak a different language. Like we know in India, I come from a state. The regional language is something. My native language is something. My communication is also based on English. So I don't take pride in any of that. But culture plays a huge role, right? When you are in a particular place, you've got to speak that language because relatability is a factor. Suppose we go to Delhi. A lot of your communication will happen in Hindi invariably because that's the culture, right? So you will have to mingle with the culture. So you will have to probably learn more Hindi in order to be connecting with other people. So there's a relatability factor. If I keep saying, oh, I know only English, I'm not going to speak in Hindi. That's my problem, right?
So how do we relate this or not relate this with authenticity?
So authenticity is being yourself, but also trying to bring in an element of that particular place where you are. If I'm in your office, I have to be myself, but I also have to make adjustments to connect with you. I can't keep telling you that this is how I am. You make all the effort, right? Both of us make efforts. So, but being original is what people want today. People are tired of fake. People are tired of diplomacy. People are tired of all of that. That's why you see a lot of politicians who speak rash are accepted because people want authenticity. They don't want to listen to something that you may not mean in real life or you've not done, but you just say it in front of people. So people can figure out today when you're not authentic. Right? That's the biggest problem. So I think it's about being who you are, but making adjustments to accommodate other people to some extent. But that takes two to tango. That means both parties have to accept each other to some extent, but you also have to retain who you are to some extent.
I believe listening. Now coming to the most important and last part of communication, which is listening skills. How important that is and how do you build that?
Again, one of the most underrated parts of communication is listening. In fact, if you are a good listener, you can be a better speaker, right? So there's a saying that most people hear to respond. They don't listen to understand. So the challenge is not everybody, a lot of us are in the urgency to respond, right? So even before you would finish the session, as a question or a statement, I'm thinking about responding to you immediately, right? But I need to understand win the argument, or probably I don't want to even listen to you, right? Like I want my idea to be the idea. So I don't know, whatever, or my personality. Like I was a poor listener a few years ago, right? Even now, I have tried a lot to work on that aspect because I took feedback from others. So listening is underrated. But like Stephen Covey in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, he says one of the habits, the 7 habits that he meditates on. One is that, one of the statements he says is that seek first to understand and then to be understood. So you try to always understand the other person before you ask them to understand what you're trying to say. So yeah.
But most often it's opposite the case. I don't want to give the time, space, freedom.
True.
For somebody to understand you. You just want them to understand or being understood.
It's a lack of self-awareness, right? Hemant, that's that about, I don't know I'm doing it many times, or I don't care if I'm doing it, or I don't want to change. So either you're aware or you're not even aware, but you're aware and you don't want to change, which then becomes a part of your ego, right? Because you know you're doing a mistake, but you don't want to change that. So it's a lot to do with that. So if you're aware and you're willing to change, you will make efforts. Like I was not even aware and I was not even wanting to change once upon a time. Then I became aware, but I still wasn't really wanting to change. I said, no, the problem is not with me. Then eventually when I realized that this is not the way out, I needed to become a better listener. Because for a lot of extroverts, we suffer from wanting to be better listeners. That's where introverts are much better. They listen.
So I think be it introvert or extrovert, it's all about self-awareness. So if you are a good listener and you're listening, maybe it will take time for you to understand the value of it and become self-aware. But during the path, you will change it because you have listened to it carefully, be it an introvert or extrovert. So for me, that I think is more important. Now, a very important thing for the founders and entrepreneurs, people's per se, I would say, leadership skill. What I understand by leadership skill is that it's not a technical thing, it's more of a behavioral skill. So, if you can shed more light on the leadership skill for founders and entrepreneurs.
Okay, so first of all, to understand leadership, we have to go a step back to understand management. A lot of what we've been taught in B schools or any degrees is that how you can manage people. But that's not what leadership is all about. That's the difference between you manage processes and you lead people. But what often happens is that you lead processes and you manage people. The reverse is what is happening. So what we do is we start treating people like objects, and we start thinking that they should be treated like anything else in the office. But people are complex. So leadership is about taking that step ahead and telling that I want to be a different person. But how? The first thing is, how can you behave differently? And when you talk about behavior, it comes under the larger umbrella of competency. So when you look at competencies, there's a technical competency, then there is a behavioral competency. The technical competency is usually the know-how of how you do your job. If you're an IT person, you need to know how IT works. If you're a chef, you need to know how to cook. So this is the technical competency. But the behavioral competency is how you deal with other people. How is your attitude and your behavior? So leadership is a behavioral skill, and behaviors are taught. They're taught by other people. They're not from textbooks, which is why people take management from textbooks and they think it's leadership. So that's the classical difference between being a leader and the definition of a leader. Leader is how you evolve with your human behavior, your thought processes.
Can you share a tipping point where during the journey as an entrepreneur, a leadership that he shifted his mindset from leadership to more of a management mindset?
See, this is from a very entrepreneurial point of view, because it's very easy for me to move from this to that very easily, because leadership is about management. It's not that you cannot, a leader is also a good manager, right? Like we say, all managers are not great leaders, but all leaders are great managers. That means management is a part of leadership. It's not different. But if you want to completely bifurcate the two and say, I'm going to go back into management, that is when you start looking at numbers completely and start reading people badly. You want them to do it. Your deadlines are not flexible. You talk to them in a tone of voice. Very easy for an entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur is about survival. If your employee is not performing, you can fire them. That's what a manager would do, right? Because if your phone's not working, you're going to buy another phone. That's what is the object of the phone. So that's how you start looking at employees. You're not doing, I'm going to replace you with somebody else. But then where's the human element? Do they get the time? Now, I'm not saying that you have to work with incompetent people, but have you tried everything in your toolkit to make someone competent? Have you tried alternatives and then you let go of people? That's what I feel. So it has to be a combination. So it's very easy to go into management when you go into your survival mode. So that's what happens many times. So you have to not go to survival mode and try to take a balance.
Well, again, that book, the great book, comes into my mind, E-Myth, where the book speaks about technician, manager, and entrepreneur. I feel like a lot of times entrepreneur get distracted when it is about really finishing the job. They would act like a technician. When it is about the numbers, they will act as a manager. So during your journey, I think that is the tipping point which we are discussing about, that these are the tipping points where an entrepreneur gets distracted and focuses on the other parts. But I think he should be able to balance, and we should focus to balance to be more visionary and entrepreneurial. Well, that brings me to the next point for all the entrepreneurs, including me and everyone who's listening, about vision in entrepreneurship.
The challenge with leadership and vision is that a lot of people think that if they have a vision, they can be a leader. This is the biggest problem I've seen. So again, all visionaries are not great leaders, but great leadership is about having a definite vision, right? What is a vision? It's a dream. You know you want to go somewhere, and maybe you're also ready to take people along with you by putting in efforts, money, time, whatever it takes. But do you know how to take people along with you? You may not be equipped. You have a dream, it does not mean that you know how to go there with the people. So you know your technical know-how, but you really don't know how to take people. So you're not a great leader. So then you have to hire somebody to help you lead those people and take you to the dream, who can be a midpoint between the two. So vision is just a dream, but leadership is your entire mindset of how you operate as a person. So they're not the same. So you have to either learn. Vision is not necessarily learned, but leadership is a behavior that you have to learn from someone.
Very nicely put. Now I'll come to the most talk or buzzword around, and all of us want to know the answers on it. And you have to really make us understand that. The intergenerational or the future of leadership.
So the intergenerational leadership is of two pillars where I dwell on. This is a few years ago. I read a little bit of some theory on this, and I came up with this concept. Two aspects of intergenerational leadership. The one is about understanding that there are different generations, and every generation, the way you deal with people kind of changes, right? So what you do is that you have to understand that we have terminologies today to name the people of each decade. So you have the boomers who were born in the 70s up until the early 80s, and you have the millennials who are from the 80s till the early 90s. Then you have the Gen Zs who are from the late 90s to the early 2000s, and then you have the Gen Alpha, which is after the 2002. People have born out after 2010. So if you look at all of this, right, it's understanding that every generation there is a huge paradigm shift in terms of how you deal with people. With the advent of technology, and now more importantly of social media and other aspects, the way you deal with people are more well informed. So one aspect is looking at that differently. The other one is learning from the previous generation. That is, you would say, like, when you're bringing up your children, you're probably, if you're a parent, you look up and say, okay, I don't want to be that kind of a father or a mother that my parents did. So because parents do make their share of mistakes. So you want to give a better life. You want to be better. So when you are correcting what a previous generation did and you're changing your pattern, that's also intergenerational leadership. So you can look at a nasty boss and say, when I become a boss, I don't want to be like that. Right. So that is also intergenerational leadership learning is what we say. So I dwell on these two aspects, but I'm thinking your question navigates towards how to deal with the generations of today, which is the people you're hiring are a
Before you answer that, I'll put more perspective into it, because this is by far the most important thing.
Right.
So I was recently watching one interview with Palki Sharma. It was where she mentioned about Gen Z. So it's very much ranking on YouTube. So there she mentions what exactly Gen Z wants. Will they want to? They don't want to become. They want to become from intern to CEO. This is the word she uses. They want to get information from TikTok and many other adjectives she used there to define Gen Z, that like they don't want to do the same thing over and over again. They don't want to follow the work protocols. So what exactly Gen Z wants?
Again, very, very long answer, because my entire coaching has a premise on how to deal with this generation, which is by far the most challenging generation that is changing the workplace dynamics across the world. But not so much positively. That's the whole problem, right? But there are dynamic. So let me talk about what the positives are. You're dealing with a very dynamic generation that's changing a lot of things. They want straightforwardness. They want honesty. They want transparency. They're very tech savvy. They're willing to learn to a large extent and all of that. The only thing is that they have a huge problem with their behavior and attitude. Well, now, are you going to blame them for that? I don't think you have to blame them, because look at who's bringing them up, right? I blame a lot of that with the upbringing that they're getting. Today's parents often think that the one solution to keep your children happy is giving them technology, helping them to be engaged with that, and telling them that life is easy. Why are parents doing that? I mean, I come from a middle-class family, and I don't think there was any particular day in my life where my parents didn't tell how they climb mountains to give me a life. Right. So
Cross the rivers.
So same up about
Every day going on bicycle for 50 kilometers. All these stories.
Yeah, my dad would say, "Oh, I didn't stop for a coffee." I mean, I didn't ask you to do that. If you did that of your own choice, so don't put that on me, right? So anyway, so the problem is that parents refuse to talk about their struggles with their children, and everything is coming at us at the blink of an eye, right? Like with technology, right? Like, let me talk about, I give this as a very, very standard examples. If you were to have something of a food of your liking, let's say a few years ago, about 10, 15 years ago, the only thing that happened in 2 minutes were Maggi noodles. And it never happened in 2 minutes. It was only a marketing strategy. But today, if you want to have your favorite food, you can get it in 20, 25 minutes, right? You just go on your phone, you at a click, you get the food at your doorstep. That's one way of looking at how. There's another, there are many aspects. Let's talk about, you wanted to buy a product for yourself, right? You had a few years ago, you would have to go to the market, you would have to wait for the launch, you would have to look at different places. What has Amazon done to you today? Or what has a Souk.com, whatever, all your e-commerce platforms, what have they done to your life? They've made it so easy for you to get products. So like this, if you look at a lot of things in life, they're all about instant gratification. Convenience. And the instant gratification part comes from the dopamine in your brain, which is a reward immediately for something that you do. There's no patience.
Are we moving towards where we have to make, as a company, as an employer, work to be more convenient as per what you have shared the knowledge?
I think it's both efforts. I think employers have to change the way they're looking at the Gen Zs and bring the right Gen Zs into your company. Like, I hire with a lot of cognizance. That means I look at people very, very carefully before I hire. I test them, I try them, but I'm also flexible, right? Years ago, if you spoke to me about working remotely and having control over your employees, it would have been impossible. But my entire team right now is remote, right? So I've been flexible that way. So I think it takes both efforts. An employer or a hiring manager should make flexibility in terms of how they're coming, and mentorship, because they come from a different background. You have to bring them on to your side, mentor them. But this is why we say will versus skill. Do they have the willingness to change? Do they have the willingness to learn? And not through by just telling you, because in an interview, everybody will tell you, Hemant, I want to change. I want to do this. I want to, I want to do that. But that's why I don't interview in one round. I put them through 3 different rounds sometimes, make them wait for 2 to 3 weeks, test their patience to some extent. And when they do prove themselves is when I bring them on board. Right. So I have a very important, as a person who comes from a strong HR background, I ensure that I get the best people, but I do scrutinize them very well, because we don't have a full-fledged HR team at the moment. So what I'm saying is getting the right Gen Zs is important, or right, getting the right people. Let me just put it that way. Whatever age group that is, it's really important. But I think a hiring manager will have to have a lot of flexibility in today's world. Micromanagement is not something they like. So you can't be micromanaging them. What are you doing at 9 o'clock? What are you doing at 12 o'clock? That irritates them. And 90% of the people I've been interviewing in the last 1 year have left their jobs without another job. That speaks volumes in today's world, right? How do you leave a job? So you have to understand that this generation is not working to put food on the plate in a lot of places. They are working to elevate their lifestyle, because parents
Or to be more happy at workplace and be happy in general in their life and fulfilling.
So one of the things that I find it very difficult, or one of the things that anyone finds it very difficult to adjust, is micromanagement, because we were all micromanaged at one point of time by our bosses and leaders.
And parents.
Parents, okay, that's, my parents were a little liberal, so I think my parents were not big micromanagers. So I grew up in a slightly liberal environment. But yeah, but bosses can be like that. What are you doing at 9 o'clock? What are you doing at 12 o'clock? So that's not something what they want, because that wasn't done to them at home. So like you said, parents probably didn't do that. So they don't like micromanagement. They want to be about result oriented. They also want flexibility. I know a lot of people who do not want to go to office. They want a lot of flexibility, work from home options. They want that. All of this is something that they demand in today's world.
Well, one thing I didn't mention, and I literally kept it for the end, was that Palki Sharma in the end mentions in that interview about Gen Z that no matter whether we like it or no, next generation who's going to take over in the employment space is Gen Z. So we have to make the harmony, we have to work around, and together we have to make the world better in terms of the consumers and the company itself.
Right.
That brings me to the summary part of this podcast, what we all discussed and what we all learned and what we are sharing with the users. So I'll just summary up. Just let me know if I'm going wrong somewhere, if I'm sure, because this is your playground. So we started with your 3 pillars about life coaching,
Right.
which is mindset, communication, and leadership. In mindset, we spoke about mainly about NLP, which has many strategies which you have taken as well, whether it's self-talk, removing the negativity out of your mind, past behaviors, limiting your briefs, and then transforming it.
Right.
So this was we discussed in the mindset.
Right.
Then we moved on to the communication aspect, where we discuss that it is not the language which is actually the communication, it is how you speak, which comes body language, how you sit, everything related to body language. We discuss about the public speaking, which is not a communication problem, again it's a mindset problem.
Right.
So this is what we discuss in the communication. Then we came back to the leadership, which is an important aspect of any organization.
Right.
There we discuss about management versus leadership. So how do you distinguish that you have to lead people and manage processes, not the other way around? And that's how you become leader, not a manager.
Right.
And then we moved on to the vision thing, how your dream has to come true and you will take people along with you for that vision, not alone. You need people all the time, you need a great team, and wealth has to be shared, and together you have to really make that dream happen, which is your vision. Then we discuss that leadership is a behavioral skill, not a technical skill. So you have to learn that, you have to preach that in your organization outside as well, so you become better as a leader. Then in the final thing, we discussed about future of leadership, which is where we discussed about Gen Z, which is going to be the people who are going to work with you in your company, and that's how you have to create harmony with them and thrive both for them as an employee and you as an employer. So thank you so much for sharing this wealth of information with us. Hope you liked it and our people who are watching this will like it.
Thank you so much for having me, Hemant. I mean, I've been looking forward to talking to you in the last few days, but it was fantastic sharing a lot of my perspective. Was almost like coaching somebody for the last 1 hour. So it was really nice talking to you, and I hope people can take away a lot from this and that we could meet soon again.